Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR. Before we begin today's show and I welcome today's guest, I want to announce that this week's Member Focus Monday and HAR On The Move podcast are sponsored by Johnson Development Company. A little later in the show, we will hear from Tammy McCall and Monica Conchola on the ways that JDC empowers realtors. So thank you to Johnson Development Company for your support. Also, later in the show, we will be announcing the winner of the HAR Engage Scholarship. So if you're one of the people that submitted an application for the scholarship, we will be announcing that later in the show. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I'd like to welcome a very special guest to our program that we're very excited to have, and that is Chairman Sanjay Ram with Houston Metro. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Christina. Thank you. Good morning, everyone that's joined the show.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to hear from you. And when you and I met last week, it was something that you mentioned was that it was really important to you for people to understand that Metro, whether you utilize Metro services or not, it affects us all. So I'm excited to hear more about that from you today, as I'm sure our members are. Before we get into some questions I have for you, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. If you could tell us just more about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. I moved to Texas about 31 years back to go to graduate school at Texas A&M. I'm an engineer by training, have been working in the public infrastructure space for the better part of the last 28, 30 years. So what does it mean for your realtors? It's the roads, the bridges, the drainage, the flood control, all that goes around your subdivisions are projects that I've worked on over the last 20, 30 years. Civic engagement has been an essential part of my life. So been involved with a whole host of organizations, served as the chair of Leadership Houston, the Texas Lyceum, which is a public policy organization. And I've been on the Metro board since 2015. I've served in multiple roles, including as the chair of the Capital and Strategic Planning Committee that puts together things such as the Metro Next program. And since early part of 2022, I've been serving as the chairman of the board.
Great. Thank you so much. Lot of work that's gone into where you are today. And again, we're excited to hear what you have to share. So let's jump right into it. And I want to visit that topic that you mentioned to me last week when we met. How exactly does Metro impact the Houston region as a whole?
Sure. What most folks don't recognize probably is that Metro service area is about 1,300 square miles. That's about the size of the state of Rhode Island, which means it's a pretty vast, expansive area that we provide services to. Most folks think about us as the agency that runs the buses and trains, but we do a whole lot more than that. We are a public service agency. When a firefighter needs a cooling bus, when folks need to be evacuated to shelters during a hurricane or a flood. And we also run about 110 miles of HOV lanes. What the commuter rail system is to the northeast, the HOV lanes running down the middle of our highways are to Houston. So pre-pandemic, on a daily basis, about 37% of the downtown workforce came in on a Metro asset, which means they came in on a train, park and ride, bus, or a local bus, or a van pool, or in their cars using the HOV lanes. At the height of the pandemic, we were still giving 100,000 rides per day, connecting people to critical livelihoods, including to the Texas Medical Center and healthcare facilities. So as realtors, think about this. If Metro were to disappear for a day, we would need 7 city blocks of downtown Houston just to park the cars for the 37% of folks that come in using Metro. This is not taking into account, we'll have to probably add 3-4 lanes each way on each of our highways, 59, I-10, 290, and all of that. What that means is it plays a critical role. For the longest of times, everything that we do on transit nationally has been measured by a single metric. You know, when it comes to real estate, it's about location, location, location. When it comes to transit, it's been ridership, ridership, ridership. Which is a very important metric, but it's not the only metric, because even if you don't use transit, if 5, 10, 15% of our region uses transit, it makes it easier for the other 90% of the car drivers, I'm not encouraging this, to drive at higher speeds and reduce your travel time to get to work or recreation or whatever it might be. So the value that transit brings is beyond ridership. It's most certainly beyond revenue. We are $1.25 fare for 3 hours, among the cheapest anywhere in the United States. If you could sell $1.25 tickets and make money with the revenue and be profitable, it would not be public transportation. It would be private transportation. So the biggest systems, London, Shanghai, New Delhi, New York, none of those are revenue generators. So the value that transit brings is mobility in the strictest sense of the word, getting folks from point A to point B. But it's beyond just that kind of mobility. It's socio-economic mobility, connecting people to educational opportunities, job opportunities. Right? That's the value that transit brings. And frankly, it's an economic imperative for the region. In order for us to attract, frankly, retain businesses and talent, we need to have multimodal options, because the next generation of Houstonians, the next generation of customers for the Houston area realtors are folks that are worried about quality of life. When I moved to Houston, I was looking for a job, got a good job, and I moved. Today's workforce is looking beyond just the job and the paycheck. They're looking for access to, how do I get to the theater? How do I get to the park? What are my options for entertainment? What's my quality of life? So that's the value that transit brings, because we know that for Amazon to consider Houston for HQ2, that access to mobility becomes a critical piece of it, which means it's an economic imperative for us to expand on transit options.
Thank you. Thank you so much for laying that out for us. I think that it's definitely something that a lot of us take for granted, is the public transportation that's available to keep Houston moving, as we say. So how does an awareness of Metro's services benefit realtors in the Houston area?
I'll go back to location, location, location. Too often, just like you pointed out, Christina, right? It's an afterthought. Most folks move to wherever they want to move. Then they are worrying about, what's my access to get to work? You move for a school district, you move for the kind of subdivision, the amenities and all of that. It is important for them to keep in mind that if you're going to tell all these Californians that, come on down to Houston, we'll buy you a $300,000 mansion for the cost of a garage apartment in California, they also need to know that they need to be able to recognize their backyard and front yard on Saturday morning. Because if you're leaving when it's dark outside and coming back home when it's dark outside, that's not a good thing. So it is to know where services exist, where the park and ride systems are, particularly if you live in the suburb. If you're living inside the loop, knowing where the rail lines are, the green line, purple line, and the red line. And we now are going to be having 17 new high-frequency bus corridors will be dramatically improving the travel time. So at the end of the day, what your customers, what Houstonians are looking for is safe, reliable, frequent, accessible, multimodal travel options. So having the Realtors Association know about what those options are should, frankly, in my mind, hopefully help close the deal, if you will.
Absolutely. And we did share a link to ridemetro.org in the comments, so you can check out a full list of their services and stops and all of that there. You already mentioned a little bit about Houston traffic and how much worse it could be if there wasn't public transportation available. So tell us a little bit more about that. How is Metro helping people save time and money on their commute?
Multiple ways. In addition to the existing system that we have, part of the Metro Next plan is also to build bidirectional HOV lanes. Why is that important? Because in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, folks moved to the suburbs and then came into town to work. But today's millennials want to live in the Heights, Midtown, downtown, and then they want to work in the lands, Sugarland, Pearland, Woodlands, Energy Corridor, so on and so forth. So it is important for us to have that bidirectional HOV lanes because I-10 and 59 are as congested going out as they are coming in, both in the morning and the evening. So that is a big part of what we're working on. The other is the bus rapid transit corridors, which is rail on rubber tires, dedicated lanes, predictable time of travel, which is what we need for folks to consider transit as an option. So let's step back a little bit. We all have enjoyed some tremendous economic growth in the Houston region, but if you think about why, it goes back to bold visionary decisions that we've made. investing in a 53-mile ship channel, 2 international airports, now a spaceport, our highway system, toll road system, securing water rights. I think the continued economic growth is going to be inextricably tied to how we solve for mobility, and mobility has a huge part to play in that quality of life. What else are we doing? In addition to the HOV lanes, bidirectional, the BRT, 75 miles of it, all of that helps reduce travel times. And why is that important? Today, our region is about 6 to 7 million people. If you look at the state demographer or any of the projected population growth, we're expected to get to 11 million people. I'm an engineer, so numbers make sense to me, but let me put this in qualitative terms. That growth in population will be the same as adding the populations of the city of Austin, city of San Antonio, not the region, the city of Austin, city of San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Waco, and Arlington on top of ourselves.
Wow.
If you think traffic congestion is bad today, what do you think that does? Today, at 26 lanes wide, I-10 is congested in the morning and the evening with 6 to 7 million people. If you almost double that population, do we need 50-lane highways? That's not a realistic option. Highways and roads are going to always be an integral part of the solution, but it needs to be beyond just roads and highways, and that's what we're working on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I have more questions, but if you have questions for the chairman, please type those in and we will get to as many of those as we can. So tell us, you mentioned Metro Next a little bit. Tell us, what are some of the major projects that have been completed or are being worked on since voters passed the Metro Next bond in 2019?
Oh, very thankful, because we talked about bold decisions that have allowed us to grow, right? I think back in 2019, the citizens of Houston and Harris County made yet another bold visionary decision, which is to invest in Metro Next that came with no tax increase, but it passed with almost 70% of the vote. That to us is a mandate that the region is hungry for solutions now. A lot of the transit projects, by the nature of those projects, need federal approval, federal environmental approval, federal dollars to help build these projects. So the process is fairly long. So what we've done is to accelerate projects where we can, particularly those projects where we are building it with local dollars. So that if you broadly divide Metro Next, there are multiple verticals. We are light rail light, about 16 miles of light rail improvements, 75 miles of bus rapid transit, dedicated lanes, 17 boost corridors. Those are those orange lines that you see on this map. High frequency bus routes where there is high ridership. There's also universal accessibility. As much as we have youngsters moving into Houston, we are also aging, which means having a better walk, a better stop, and a better ride is really important. Universal accessibility that goes beyond the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is also the bidirectional HOV lanes. Those are the five broad areas within Metro Next, and we've made progress in the last 4 years in spite of the pandemic on all five of those. Later this year, we will be completing 5,000 bus stops that have been upgraded to universal accessibility beyond the requirements of ADA. Obviously, we all are aware of supply chain issues. We're going to be installing 400 new bus shelters. We already have about 2,700 bus shelters. We're going to be adding to that. It is hot in Houston, so we're trying to come up with bus shelters that have got solar-powered fans. That's on the universal accessibility. On the bidirectional HOV, the first project that we will work on will be along the 59 corridor, going from Spur 527 out to the 610 loop and just beyond to have bidirectional HOV. We already have bidirectional HOV on 290. On the boost corridors, we've already under construction on 2 boost corridors on Scott and Airline. We're going to be going into construction in the fall of this year on the 82 Westheimer, which is the workhorse of our system. Everybody talks about Houston being the most diverse city. If you ride the 82 bus from downtown to West Oaks at Highway 6 and Westheimer, you'll experience every language and cuisine that you have across Houston. Carries about 12,000 riders a day. That construction will start later in the fall. We are working on 3 bus rapid transit corridors. The University Bus Rapid Transit Corridor, 25 miles long, the longest BRT corridor anywhere in the United States, connects the University of St. Thomas University of Houston, Texas Southern Universities, and 5 campuses of the Houston Community College system. A game changer for our region. And we're working with our regional partners, Fort Bend and Harris County, to see if we can extend mobility west of the Beltway. This runs from Tidwell and 59 on the north side, through Midtown, through Greenway Plaza on the south side of the Galleria, all the way to West Park and the Beltway. We're working with Fort Bend County and Harris County to see, as you all know, population is booming further west of the Beltway. We're looking to see how do we improve mobility all the way to Grand Parkway and beyond.
Wow.
On light rail, we are working with TxDOT and the Southeast Management District to see how we can thread the needle to extend our existing investments in the Green Line, Purple Line, and Red Line. The reason we are light rail light and BRT heavy is bus rapid transit for our region's density is a whole lot better suited because it's cheaper to build and quicker to build. In addition to the University Corridor, we are working on the Gulfton Bus Rapid Transit Corridor. Gulfton is the most densely populated part of Houston, high propensity traffic riders, transit riders. The density is almost 4 times that of anywhere else in Houston. Right? So connecting them to the University Corridor and also then the inner Katy Corridor, because today, magically, the HOV lanes on I-10, Katy Freeway, disappear inside Loop 610. We are looking to build a dedicated BRT corridor that will not only connect the Galleria to the convention center, but also be used for all the park and ride buses that come in along 290 and I-10, and that project is moving along as well. We are tremendously excited on the University Corridor. We are included as part of President Biden's fiscal 2024 budget, which is a very good sign for the future prospects of that project. Lots going on as part of the $7.5 billion of projects, but we can't do this alone. No single agency has enough money or enough ideas to solve for the congestion that we have, which means it is working with the Texas Department of Transportation, Harris County, City of Houston, Fort Bend County, anybody that wants to work with us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And, I'm about to ask about airports here in a second, but I would imagine all of this is something that, groups look at when they bring major events like Super Bowl to Houston or bringing these large, tech conferences or oil conferences to Houston. This is what they're looking at. How are we going to move around the city?
Absolutely. So we are one of the few cities that don't have that connectivity. So here's what we have in the Metro Next plan is to take the Green Line and Purple Line that'll go from Magnolia Transit Center, essentially from downtown to Magnolia right now, downtown to Palm Center, but taking those, connecting them, and taking it all the way into Hobby Airport. That's the next rail project that we'll be working on. The Bush Airport is much further away, so we're looking at doing bus rapid transit. In the interim, hopefully something along the Hardy Toller, but eventually when the I-45 project is built, is to have dedicated lanes that'll get us from downtown to the Bush Airport. I'm really glad you brought up the conventions. The inner Katy BRT and the University BRT allow Houston to go after much larger conventions, because by doing that, we would have brought all of the hotel rooms in the Galleria to be a one-seat ride from the George R. Brown Convention Center. So if you think about it, we've got the Super Bowl, we've done the Astros parade, we've got the Final Four that's come to Houston multiple times, and Metro is a critical part of what allows us to host those events. Because the number of people that we can move between downtown hotels, Discovery Green, all the way to NRG and back is a big game changer when we are auditioning, if you will, in front of groups that want to bring conventions or the Super Bowl or any of those to our region.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We had a couple questions come in, so I do want to address those. Before I ask the first question, just a quick comment here from Tiffany. She's just doubling down. Those bi-directional HOV lanes would be amazing, she is saying. So Britt was asking, we lived in Denver and their public transportation system and walkability was so reliable, safe, and efficient. I'm wondering if there are any other cities that you're keeping an eye on to model future ideas off of.
Great question, Britt. We're always looking to see what best practices are elsewhere in the country and frankly elsewhere in the world, right? and how we need to adapt it, because Houston's kind of unique. We are an auto-centric city. We pride ourselves in getting behind our trucks. Most folks, I'll say it for folks my age, we couldn't wait to get our hands on a steering wheel. Today, 16, 17, and 18-year-old can get their hands off a handheld device. So we need to be building for that future customer, what their preferences are going to be. There are things that we have learned from Denver. There are things that we have learned from LA, which is more of an urban sprawl, much like what we do in Houston, except LA had a big tax increase and could afford $100 billion investment in transportation. That was not just transit, it was beyond transit. It also included roads and all of that good stuff. So we are looking to see what we can learn, but our situation is somewhat unique. Back in 2015, we were the first of large transit agencies to try and reimagine our bus network. We were a wheel and spokes. Everything had to go downtown before you could go somewhere else. We went to a north-south, east-west grid system, and pre-pandemic, we were one of two agencies nationwide where our ridership was actually growing by double-digit percentages. The only other region that was doing that was Seattle. When you've got folks from New York and New Zealand come down to Houston to look at what did you all do with the reimagined bus system, we must be doing something right. So it's that constant exchange of ideas. We've seen some things that Atlanta has done along their rail system that we're trying to learn from. Obviously, we're looking at what Seattle's done, LA has done, but that's, if I could put a shameless plug for the agency, in the last 6 years, Houston Metro has been recognized by the American Public Transportation Association, which is where the peer agencies all get together and learn from each other. We've been recognized as the outstanding large public transportation agency, not once, but twice in the last 6 years, which we're very proud of. But there's always constant learning. If you all have ideas, we're always open to innovative ideas and see how we can make things happen.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. We also had a question that came in from Jenny. She was saying, what is the projected completion on Buffalo Speedway to South Pearland?
Buffalo Speedway to South Pearland is a City of Houston and the City of Pearland project. I would opine, but it would not be wise for me to opine on somebody else's project completion.
Okay, very good. Just double checking. I don't see any other questions, but if you have more questions for the chairman, please type them in at this time and we'll get to as many as we can. So Metro isn't only in Houston. What is the Metro Star van pool and where does that operate?
So I'm glad you brought that up. The 1,300 square miles at Metro service area includes the City of Houston, a large part of Harris County with the exception of the eastern parts of Harris County, and 14 smaller cities. Bel Air, Missouri City, Humble, the villages, so on and so forth. But the Metro Star van pool, we go well beyond just the 1,300 square miles. The Metro Star van pool is really folks coming from, say, a subdivision in Pearland, just for talking purposes. They're not part of the Metro service area, but if somebody wants to come in from there, this is where we provide the vehicle. They bring 4 or 5 folks together and ride together into work and back. Take the Texas Medical Center, for example. Transit doesn't work for everyone, depending on their work situation. There are folks that go to 15 meetings during a day. Well, maybe they need to drive. But most folks that work in the Texas Medical Center, I don't know many doctors and nurses that go to 17 meetings during a day. Once they're in the hospital, they're inside the hospital, right? Which then makes transit a very attractive way to get in and get out, because you've got defined shifts. You're going to get in there, you're going to work in the same building. So Metro Star van pool is a very attractive option. There are folks that I believe come in from Needville, southwest of Sugar Land, on Metro Star van pool. There are folks that I believe come in from west of Katy, west of Fulshire, that come in, or from Conroe. So that is a service that is highly adaptable to the personal needs of folks that want to use it. It's got to be more than one person, of course. We won't be running a 15-seater van for one person, but it's a group of folks, and it's not 15 people. It could be 4, 5, 6 folks.
Excellent. What about the curb-to-curb service? Can you tell us about that and who could benefit from it?
So the curb to curb service started off about 4 or 5 years back as a community connector service, and now we've rebranded it to be curb to curb because a better walk, a better stop, a better ride. I don't know how much better of a walk you can get to if we pick you up right outside your front door. Right, that's the curb to curb. It's almost an Uber-esque service. Metro next includes 10 areas where we're going to put in the curb to curb service, which is that first mile, last mile. It started off as service in areas that have been historically under invested in, where the infrastructure doesn't allow for a big bus to go in and even be able to make the turns. So this is smaller vehicles that go within a defined service area, connecting people within that area to their grocery store, to their clinic, uh, to the community center, but also to the nearest transit center so they can then access the broader service across 1,300 square miles. We now have it at Hiram Clark, Missouri City, Kashmir Gardens, Acres Homes, and Gulfton, and looking to see how we can do more of that. In the short term, the curb to curb service is using smaller vehicles, sometimes electric vehicles. But in the longer term, we we were the first in the Houston region to implement an autonomous shuttle. We ran that on the campus of Texas Southern University pre-pandemic. We're now looking to expand that and to making that shuttle ADA compliant, because the curb to curb service is also for seniors that are choosing not to want to drive. So the accessibility becomes really important. The first of that expanded autonomous shuttle will be connecting TSU to the Red Line train station, extending to the University of Houston, and eventually to the Eastwood Transit Center. Once technology is developing so rapidly, we're trying to be future ready. We're not trying to be future proof, because we'll be kidding ourselves if we try to be future proof, because some brilliant soul on this call is going to come up with a new technological innovation that nobody ever thought of. Right? So that's what we're trying to do, is to try and be future ready.
So speaking of being future ready, what do you believe the future of Metro looks like?
Well, the future of Metro is robust. We have a strong financial footing to build from. Since I'm speaking to the realtors, this is a good analogy. Most folks say you'll have our budget's about $1.7 billion annually, and it's higher now than it was 2 years back because we are in the middle of a big expansion program. That expansion program means we also need to have money to be able to operate it. That expansion program also means while we're looking at expansion, we need to focus on the best service that we can provide on our existing service. So the reason our bank balance is robust is the same reason people's bank balances are robust before they buy their house, because they need a down payment on that house. So when we talk about federal matching grants coming our way, we need to have the local match dollars that are available, and that is what we are trying to do with some very fiscally conservative approaches over the last 4 to 5 years to get ready for the expansion. When we have these expansion projects, 40 projects between now and 2040 complete, here is what the future is going to look like. Imagine a region where our business districts and job centers, schools and universities, hospitals and clinics, grocery stores and shopping malls, parks and recreational facilities are all connected by safe, reliable, predictable, frequent, accessible, and equitable multimodal transportation options. Because that's not the future of Metro. That's what is the future of Houston, because Houstonians want a choice. Houstonians, Harris County residents, Fort Bend County residents, all of them want a choice to be able to walk, bike, roll, drive, or in our preferred option, be driven by Metro to their destinations. So they can leave the driving to others and focus on the things that they want to get done, whether it's for work or play. That's the future of Houston Metro.
Very good. And I think our members agree. Britt, who asked a question earlier, said, yes, please, with a bunch of exclamation points. We did have a couple questions I wanted to address with you. Annie was asking, does Metro have an elevated rail project?
At this point in time, with exceptions of some areas, the elevated rail is very, 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 rail in general is expensive to build, particularly when we are a vast area. Having said that, There are parts of the rail project that are elevated. Uh, Particularly if you look at what we're doing just northeast of downtown, is already elevated at the Burnett Transit Center. In order for us to get to Hobby Airport, we've got to navigate Union Pacific Railroad, State Highway 36 expansion, Loop 610, drainage issues, all kinds of. So that portion of it is going to be elevated. Uh, it, uh, Annie, let me say this: decisions that we make today will have an impact 50 years from now. Decisions that we made in 1983 are impacting us today, 40 years from then. If we had chosen to build many of these projects as elevated rail projects back in the 1980s, two things, three things. Our corridors would have been less congested. The cost of construction was a whole lot less back in 1980 and 1990. And back then, for every local dollar that we put into a project, the federal government was willing to match it with one, two, three, or for the right project, $4 of matching funds from the federal government to $1 of local funds. Today, that reality is a one-to-one matching at best, and the cost of construction, as you all know, at HAR has skyrocketed. So we're trying to balance, and that's part of the reason why we are going BRT heavy, because we could build one rail line or 500 miles of travel improvements across multiple modes. That's the choice. And we are put in that position because of choices that we made in 83. So I hope the region with almost 70% of the vote says, let's make a different choice today so that our future is bright and robust.
Makes sense. Rosie was just asking a great question here. She said, what are you doing to inform people of these services? So how is this being marketed to the general public? And I'm going to add to Rosie's question a little bit. How can realtors help spread the word about this as well?
Fantastic question. And you're absolutely right. You know, when folks move to the Northeast United States, to Boston or New York or to Washington, D.C., transit is second nature. Right? When folks move to Houston, Texas, they're looking for where's the nearest highway. Right? So it's an educational process. We have a robust social media team. If you all watch local television, there are commercials on how to ride, how to get more information, and frankly, even if you don't ride, right? It goes back to the same thing. If 10% of folks choose a different mode, it becomes easier for the rest of us. What's happening this week and next week? School starts. You all know how much traffic gets worse when school starts. It's the same logic. If you have less folks on the road, it makes it easier for the others. Go to ridemetro.org. If you all have events, our public outreach team is more than happy to come out and tell folks about all of the things that we're doing. And I'll ask you all for this as well. There is, and this is an elephant in the room that most folks don't want to confront, but Christina knows by the conversations that we've had. I'm willing to have a conversation on any topic. There is a misnomer that somehow public transportation, there's a safety issue, there's a crime issue. Let me put it this way. We live in a large city. Our system is no more safer, or I would say safer, but no more unsafe than anywhere else in the region. Right? And more often than not, folks will also tell you, we don't ride public transit because, it's not frequent, doesn't work for my lifestyle, but it also brings crime. So my response to that is, you're worried that somebody is going to ride a bus, come in, break into your house and steal your 65-inch TV, and their escape plan is to go wait for an unreliable, infrequent bus? Where does that make sense? I did say one thing that's not right. It's not a 65-inch TV any longer. It's a 72-inch TV. That's the only part of that statement that is not true. So I think we need to recognize as a region that our economic vibrancy is inextricably tied to how we solve for mobility, which means multiple modes of travel. Cars, trucks, highways, roads, but for the growing population that we have and the future customer whose preference is not to drive as much as some of us do, we've got to educate folks about the value of transit, which is where we started the conversation.
Great, thank you. Connie just had a question here. She's excited about the growth, but when you say you need more money to operate, are we also talking about tax increases?
No, we're not. Connie, you can take this to the bank. When we went in front of the voters in 2019, that was for bonding authority to live within our existing revenue stream. No new taxes. Metro is funded by a 1 cent sales tax, and there is absolutely no, granted, our region needs more, but we also know where we live and what our reality is, and so we are living within our means. Here's another thing that we're doing as part of the Metro Next program, and we've been doing this for the last 20 years, and we have expanded it for another 20 years. When folks think about, I live in Northwest Harris County, and I don't have local bus service because people didn't want local bus service. You have park and ride service. What does Metro do for me? Here is another thing that folks don't know. Up to 1/4 of that 1 cent, Metro gives back to the city of Houston, Harris County, and the 14 smaller cities so they can build transportation infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, you name it. And over the last 20 years, we have invested $3.8 billion into the city of Houston, Harris County, and smaller cities to build their roads and sidewalks. And as part of Metro Next, again, no new taxes, we have extended that program for another 20 years to where we will invest upwards of $4 billion into roads and sidewalks that the smaller cities, Harris County and City of Houston, will build, right? Which means, yes, we run the buses, trains, van pool, HOV, and all of that. Metro Lift, which we haven't talked about, yes, is the those with disabilities, the ability for them to ride transit, which is another program that we're very proud of because we are dramatically lower in cost than anywhere else in the country. In addition to doing all of that, over the last 20 years and the next 20 years, we would have invested another $8 billion through the cities and the county into building roads and sidewalks for folks that don't have transit in close proximity to them. So no new taxes.
Excellent. We love to hear that. Well, we have a few more questions for the chairman, but we do want to get to our sponsor video. Again, today's Member Focus Monday and this week's HAR On the Move podcast are sponsored by Johnson Development Company. So we're going to watch a quick video from them, and then right afterwards we will be announcing the winner of the HAR Engage Scholarship. So stay tuned. Let's watch this quick video from Tammy and Monica.
Hi, Realtor friends. Monica Conchola here with Johnson Development, Realtor Relations Liaison for the North. I handle Grand Central Park, Wood Forest, Amira, Jubilee, and Creston. Yes, and I am Tammy McCall, Realtor Relations Extraordinaire for the South. I handle Jordan Ranch, Cross Creek West, Candela, Harvest Green, Veranda, Imperial, Riverstone, Sienna, and Edgewater. Woo! You are a busy lady.
We are.
We want to take this moment to focus on our JDC Realtor Showcase piece. Yes, and this showcase piece is the best tool you'll ever find from any developer. And what's really cool, we are the only developer that has this available for our realtor friends. Inside, there's a QR code for Realty University. This is an amazing tool. It not only tells you about our events and our grand openings and all the things going on in our communities, but it also gives you HOA, tax information, everything you need to know about each community. Then, further in, you have all the QR codes for each one of our communities, and it also takes you into just the lineup of our website. On the back, you can connect with both of us. Go right here. We will make this available to you. Thank you. We can't wait to see you.
So thank you again to Johnson Development Company for sponsoring this week's show. And now is the time for those that have been waiting. The winner of the HAR Engage Scholarship for this year is Marina Gutierrez with JPAR, the Sears Group. So congratulations, Marina. Our events team will be reaching out to you after this. And if she's not tuned in, somebody tag her in the comments so she can come watch this. All right. So with that, again, Chairman Ram, you've shared so much great information. Is there anything else that you want to share with our members today that we haven't yet talked about?
I could go on for a long, long time, but the fantastic set of questions, both from you, Christina, and from the audience. We're here to serve the region, and we understand that working with multiple partners, both in the public sector and private sector, is how we move the needle, how we improve mobility. And Metro is always available for any questions, ideas, suggestions, things that we need to improve, because that's the only way our region benefits. So we look forward to collaboration with the Houston area realtors. And if you need more information or other events that you want folks to come and explain how to use Metro, we're happy to do that. One last thing that I would say, this is a regional approach. Later this year, we will be taking the lead on rolling out a regional fair media policy, which is customers don't care if Harris County Transit or Fort Bend Transit or Houston Metro, or for that matter, anybody else is providing the service. They just want access to transportation. And part of that is historically how we have done our park and ride facilities. We are reimagining our park and ride facilities. The way we've done it historically is we see soil in Houston, we pour concrete on it. Right? We have big old concrete parking lots. We're trying to transform those big old parking lots into meaningful destinations. Mixed use development where there is shopping on the first floor, a garage for our customers and for residents of housing and offices on the higher floors. The first of which we are looking to go team up with the private sector to do is the Addicts Park and Ride in the Energy Corridor. The slide that you showed is what a park and ride could look like. And speaking of getting ideas from other parts of the country, Denver is doing this, LA is doing this, Washington, D.C. has been doing this for a long time. It's time for Houston to do this as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Our members are thanking you in the comments. Tiffany said, thank you for the insight on your processes and plans to make improvements. We know change will come in time. So we have faith in you, Chairman Ram.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Well, I do want to let everyone know before we go that next week we will be joined by HAR Engage speaker Marky Lemons. She has spoken at our conference in the past, and she will be back again this year. So tune in to hear about the latest in marketing technologies from her. And again, Chairman Ram, thank you so much for your time this morning. We truly appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Well, that is it for this Member Focus Monday. We will see you all next Monday at 9 a.m. Bye-bye.